into this episode, Progress Over Perfection. You are listening to the Build Like a Boss podcast, the podcast for service-based business owners who want to build, optimise and sell their business without burning out or waiting for life to calm down first. I'm Dani Louise Smith, a business strategist and operations consultant, and each week I'm sharing practical, no-nonsense strategy to help you grow a business that actually works alongside your real life. Whether you're a coach, a consultant, freelancer or service provider, this podcast is your shortcut to clarity, stronger systems and more consistent sales. Around here we focus on building sustainability even when life is unpredictable. There's no fluff, no hustle culture, just smart strategic action. Let's get into it. So I wanted to talk about progress over perfection because I feel like perfection is something that holds people back so much, but the reality is I just don't believe perfection exists, and it doesn't mean that we can't aim for it. We absolutely can, but I do think that there's always room for improvement, there's always room for growth. However, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't do the thing. So when it comes to making progress over perfecting things, all I want to say is I've got 5 kind of main points I want to work through, and the first thing is you actually just need to do the thing and perfect it later. So for example, it might be your content marketing, it might be that you just start writing, you start putting together graphics, you start talking about your business, you start talking about your brand and talking about yourself, and you start talking about your mission and your vision of what you want to create. You just get started, because once you begin, you can start looking at how it performs. You can start learning on the job. We have to learn on the job, right? I remember my first job, I was thrown in the deep end. I literally did a trial shift to see if I got the job. That was 1 hour. Showed me how to pull a pint. It was in a pub. Showed me how to pull a pint. Showed me how to work the till. And within 10 minutes, the manager literally just went and left me on the bar alone. I was thrown in the deep end. I had to learn on the job. I didn't even drink, so I had to learn all the different types of alcohol, types of wine, how to make cocktails. I had to learn so many things, as you do with any job, and you got to learn on the job. So your business is the same. You're thrown in the deep end. Do the thing, perfect it later. It's the same with having sales conversations, and this is one of the most common things that I come across that business owners hold back on because they feel icky, they don't feel comfortable doing it, they're just realistically not confident in what they're doing when it comes to selling. But just do it anyway. Do it and fail and learn from those mistakes. Do it and reflect and perfect it later. So do the thing, perfect it later. And the second thing I want to talk on when it comes to progress over perfection is setting up the system, not giving up on it, and tweak it again as you go along. So I had this conversation with a client yesterday, which has sparked me wanting to bring this into this episode, where this client admitted that she literally has no system in place. So we've been working together for a few months now, and everything I'm telling her, she's taken a couple of notes on, but she's keeping it all in her head. And I see this a lot with clients, especially my clients that have got ADHD, and it infuriates me, even though I too have ADHD. But the autistic me needs a process, needs to visually see it, and it's about knowing and understanding what that system needs to look like for you. But what I will say is, start something, create it. It needs to be digital. Don't keep everything on paper. Don't keep everything in your head, because we can forget, we can lose it, and it also makes it easier to track and manage, to make sure you don't miss anything if you have it recorded somewhere. I've also had experience with clients where they've put a system together, it's all on paper, it got destroyed with building work, so they've redone it again, and then it got destroyed in a flood, and I'm like, oh, are we not learning the lesson here? You need a digital trace of your system. But what I was talking about with this client yesterday is that she needs to find her way to create her daily method. So we were talking about that, and I was saying that she needs to project manage her business just like she does in her job role. So I'm saying set up the system, but don't give up on it, because it might be, in fact I guarantee, 99% guarantee, that once you set up the system, it's actually not going to work, because the only way you perfect it and make it right for you is by not giving up on it and tweaking it along the way. And so this applies to many different areas of your business when it comes to growth. It's about putting something in place, setting up those systems, not just giving up on them at the first hurdle or when it feels uncomfortable, actually just tweaking it to suit you better. I find that this more comes up, it's more evident when I come across people who take on systems that are someone else's. And I'm not saying you can't learn from that. I teach my systems, but I always encourage that people find their way of doing things, because there is more than one way to put systems in place for your business in order for you to manage it and to grow. Third point I want to come to is small, incremental, repeatable actions that will compound over time. So when it comes to making progress, the best way to do that is keep it as simple as possible. And one of the ways you can make it simple is look and acknowledge when a task works, when it gets a result, whether it's a sale, whether it's engagement, whether it's inquiries, whether it's a conversation, a speaking booking, an opportunity, whatever that looks like, whatever the action is, when you get that win, celebrate it 100%. That's why I'm holding an event all about celebration. Little plug to Innovation Celebration on the 20th of November 2026. Head to my website to get the details on that event. It's going to be amazing. But take note, celebrate it, take note of what you actually did to get that result, because that task, you can repeat it again. And how easy does it get to be if you take a task and just repeat those tasks so that you continue to get the same, if not better, results? And like I said, if you're taking small repeatable actions, again, you perfect it over time, perfect it later, you don't give up on it, you tweak it, then that is only going to compound and be even stronger to get bigger, better results over time. So start with small, incremental, repeatable actions that will compound over time, get you bigger, better results. The fourth point I want to come to is repeated actions actually creates measurable actions. So when it comes to making progress, you only actually grow and you only actually get close to perfecting things and get better at things if you actually measure how you're doing. And again, this is one of the most common things I see. I've said this for like a lot of these things, but I see these common themes across business owners that I work with or that I come across that are in the service-based industry, where strategy is not their forte, especially the clients I work with. I love working with therapists and healers and maybe people that are not used to like having a strategy in place and organisation of business. And so that's not their strength, but it's my strength. So when you take an action, if you can measure it, right, that's where you can make progress. So like I've just said about those small repeatable actions, any repetitive actions creates measurability. So if you do something once and it doesn't get a result and you sack it off, that is actually not going to give you an accurate definition whether it works or not. So you've got to do it again and again and again and look at overall what's happening. So for example, social media is like one of the most common and easiest things to talk on. If you're using social media, you're posting content, if you post once and say that didn't get a result, social media marketing does not work for me, then it's not really measurable because you posted once. But if you post consistently 3, 6, 7 times a week over 3 to 6 weeks, you can look back at your insights and see if there were an improvement, and you can again tweak it. But the point here is that repetitive action allows you to actually measure the data to see what's happening. And this happens for progress across the board with your business. So when it comes to your website, if you're blogging and you're using SEO, if you're running a podcast, if you have an email list, all the different forms of marketing, you can measure how things are performing if you have taken repetitive action and been consistent. So consistency is not just about getting results. Consistency, everybody bangs on about consistency, and I think consistency is important in terms of finding your way to be consistent, because it doesn't have to be every day. It can be once a week for a task if that suits you better. However, consistency is not just about getting a result. Consistency is actually about creating measurable results. so that you can see what you can do to improve. Again, progress over perfection. And then the final point I want to make is that what you do measure, you can perfect. So it really ties into this. But when it comes to taking action in your business, if you're not measuring anything, how can you know how to perfect it? So data stats are so important. I want you to think about going away from this episode and looking at the data that you have. You've got insights on your social media platforms, your websites, your email marketing. Everything provides data. And if you're not tracking when the leads are coming in, who's inquiring, start tracking those as well, because you can start to measure what actions, what responses, what keywords get those results, so that you can perfect it, you can get better at it, because what you measure, you can perfect. So have that in mind. It's progress over perfection. You want to focus on getting better all the time, improving. It doesn't have to be perfect before you get started. In fact, I've had this conversation with the client just yesterday as well, where she was talking about her messaging, and what she said was viable, like, yes, let's work on that. But I was also aware of the fact that what I also come across is people who are they're just at that point where they've done enough work, they've put enough foundations in place that they can start marketing. That bit gets uncomfortable, that bit gets scary, so they retreat and they go back over the messaging, when actually you can't measure a message unless it's out there. So I was like saying to her that what you actually need to do is you need to put it in action, do the work on it, put it in action, do the marketing, so you can actually track the progress and see how it performs. Because if you do it and then you retreat again and then you change the message again, you're never going to know if it's worked unless you put it into practice. And that's where the progress will come, through taking the action, doing the thing, perfecting it later. So as a recap, the things I've taught you through today for progress over perfection are doing the thing and perfecting it later, setting up the system and not giving up on it, tweak it, small incremental repeatable actions that compound over time, repetitive actions create measurable actions, and what you measure you can perfect. As always, let me know your thoughts on what you've got from this episode. Feedback welcome. Pop me a DM on social media, Dani Louise Smith. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the episode. I'd love to hear what you want to see coming up as well. And do share it with anyone who you think will find this valuable. Like, subscribe, comment, do all of that jazz, because it helps me grow. And the more I grow, the more I can keep coming back and sharing more insights with you that will help your business grow. In fact, that will help your business progress over time, so that you can perfect the things that you actually want to achieve. I'm Dani Louise Smith. This is Build Like a Boss. And if you would love to get in touch and work with me, the Boss Academy is the best way to work with me right now. Get in my inbox and let's have a chat.